Welcome to Castle Rock Martial Arts. My name is Master Scott Carroll, and today we're going to be going over the tutorials on the 8 cutting angles for your knife defense and knife attacks in classes. So one of the things we want to discuss first is kind of the statistics with the knife so we can start to let students know really how dangerous this weapon is. So 6 out of 10 people die from a gunshot wound, while 8 out of 10 people die from a knife wound or a knife attack. So what that means is this weapon is actually more dangerous than the firearm based on a 2019 study. The most common weapon used in a knife attack is a kitchen knife, and that means that they're probably not going to be going after a paring knife or something that's going to be small. They're probably going for the biggest blade, the biggest weapon they can find to use it to attack. So again, letting students know what is the difference between a firearm attack versus a knife attack is very simple, right? We have no registry for these, right? So we have to think that, you don't have to register a knife. You have to register a firearm. These are quiet. They can be concealed. It doesn't make any noise. It doesn't need to be reloaded. So there's all these little things, and anybody can carry it. So we have all these little different factors that make it so there's a little bit more restrictions on a firearm based on the restrictions on a knife, and it seems to be, based on statistics, more deadly than the firearm. So we start looking at that. We want to make sure and prepare our students whenever we train them that this is a very deadly weapon. We want to make sure and learn how to use it correctly in defense and also in offense. So first thing that we start with is when we start to go into any type of fighting stance, we want to make sure that we have the proper grips, all right? So whenever we start to hold the weapon, if we're going to be right-handed, we're going to hold the weapon in our right hand. We also want to start, so if we were fighting, we would have our right foot back and our hands are up and our right hand is back. We don't want to do that with the knife. So if I'm right-handed, I want to make sure that my right leg is forward, and I want to make sure that I'm standing with the weapon in my lead hand, all right? So when we start talking about grips, the first thing I want to start to break down is the standard grip and the reverse grip. So the first thing we're going to do is we start to grip the knife, we want to grip it just like a fist, right? I do not want to put my thumb on the back of the weapon. It's very important just for disarm purposes to be able to grip this weapon and make sure it's a little bit stronger, right? So this is going to be our standard grip, So whenever we're holding, it's just going to be like a punch. We're going to hold this in our standard grip here. If we're going to a reverse grip, I am changing it down and I'm going to be holding it a little bit differently. This is my reverse grip. So when I hold with reverse, it's going to be this way as well, but it's going to be changed a little bit. Again, my thumb is not gripping the weapon. So really important for our standard grip, and then our reverse grip, we want to make sure and keep our fists closed with no thumb in use. Now let's talk about our fighting stance. So whenever we get into our fighting stance, we're going to start from our reverse grip. One of the things that happens is we step forward with our right leg, and then we take our weapon and we're not holding it out to the side like this. We're not bringing it up like this, because this, you can actually see the length and the depth of this weapon. I want to change that by coming in and making it so it's very hard for you to be able to see what type of weapon that I have. What's the length? I'm not holding it like this, so you can actually have a hard time seeing what type of length and depth this weapon is. So I'm going to take my other hand, I'm going to start to cover up my throat and my vitals. If you notice, my arm is down, my hand is up, so I'm protecting my carotid arteries, and I can kind of switch where I need to. But from here, I'm very bladed, right? So whenever we fight, we're going to be a little bit more square. Like if we're totally sideways, it's going to be kind of hard to fight. So we're going to kind of go a little bit 45. We're kind of angling off some of our vital areas, and then we're going to go into this standard grip. I'm going to cover up. So if you notice, I'm starting to cover up my vitals. My legs are a little bit soft here, so that way whenever I'm striking, I'm able to move. If I'm going to go into my reverse grip, I can do this as well, where I start to change. Again, I'm using a fist, and I'm here. This is my reverse grip. So you can start to play with different grips and different movements, but as I start to move, you'll start to see even from the side that I'm bladed off. I'm not square. We bladed off to the side. And it's going to be kind of hard to see here, right? So I'm not like keeping this here, so that way you can kind of see how long this weapon is. So again, covering up your vitals, and that way we can start to cover, and then we can also protect. So one of the biggest things with this is start to get comfortable in your fighting stance. So that way when we're here, we want to make sure that this starts to feel comfortable, right? And you start to move a little bit, and you can start to feel, because it does feel a little bit different than a traditional fighting stance. So really start to break that down for your students, so that way they have a really good understanding of just making sure the weapon is an extension of your body. It really starts to make it so that it really becomes a part of them, versus I'm just going to start to put this weapon in my hand and I start to get into a position that feels a little bit foreign. It feels awkward, right? So it's going to take some time for them to adjust. So really make sure that you're taking that time with your students to even just have them move around a little bit, not even beginning to knife fight, not really having any understanding, just having them work on their footwork and kind of feel what it feels like to be a little bit more bladed off, to feel a little bit more closed off with our elbows. So it's, again, it's something that takes a little bit of time to get used to. The 8 cutting angles. The 8 cutting angles to introduce people into knife defense. There's probably several different styles out there that will teach different angles and different movements and different things. This is going to come directly from Krav Maga, and this is going to be one of the most effective systems for self-defense that I have ever seen. And as I'm a black belt in Krav Maga as well, one of the things that we've seen is the knife defense and the gun defenses and the knife offenses, they're designed for hand-to-hand combat. This was designed for the IDF, which was the Israeli Defense Force. So it's basically the Navy SEALs or the Special Forces of Israel. So they're using this in hand-to-hand combat against real live threats, right? So one of the things that we want to do is we want to make sure and make this as real world applicable as we can. So that way this is not something that is guesswork. We're not thinking that it works. We just know that it does. So whenever we start to go into these 8 cutting angles, you're going to see this again and again and again, but we want to make sure that this weapon becomes an extension of your body. Slow and steady is going to win the race here. So make sure, take your time with this. Don't rush. And please make sure that each motion is clear. And if we're doing this with partners, we are actually going to touch with the knife to make sure that whenever we feel, we're actually feeling that weapon touch the body parts, right? So take your time with this. Don't rush this. This can be an entire class of just teaching the 8 cutting angles with your partner. So as you do this, make sure that it's not too fast, and make sure that the motions are clear and precise, right? So the faster we go, sometimes our motions get smaller. We're gonna break that down. We're gonna make sure that it's nice and clear today. So I'm gonna go into my fighting stance, and I'm gonna be here nice and snug, right? The first cutting angles are gonna start off 1 and 2, 1 and 2. So that's gonna be to the carotid arteries, right? They're gonna be here on the neck, all right? So as I start to go through this, again, my right hand is gonna start to come through and it's gonna start to cut, right? As I start to cut, that is gonna go to the left side of my opponent or my threat's body, right? So whenever I'm coming through here, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Now I had 3, 4. This is gonna go across my belt line, 3, and then 4. So 1, 2, 3, and then 4. Now this is gonna look like a forehand and a backhand in tennis, right? So anytime that I'm lifting my arm and palm is gonna be up, it's gonna be like a forehand for tennis. And if I take my hand and come back, it's gonna be like a backhand for tennis. So as I change these movements with my hand, I'm just gonna come through and I'm gonna move backwards and forward. So it's gonna start carotid artery 1, 2. This is gonna cut to the spleen, and then I'm gonna cut to the liver, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5, I'm gonna invert the knife and I'm gonna go forward. This is gonna be a straight stick, right? If you're gonna go to the belly button, or if you're gonna go up and it's gonna be like an aortic strike, which is gonna go to the heart, they're gonna instantly die, right? So we're thinking about where are we attacking on the body. This could also go to the groin as well. So if I'm sticking, I'm coming through here and going straight forward. My weapon, my knife is inverting with my palm up and I'm going straight forward in, right? So from the side, it looks like this: up and then forward, up and then forward. That would be our number 5, right? So let's start from the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So far, so good, yes? We're gonna start to go to 6. I'm gonna take this stick that's gonna go straight, I'm gonna retract, and I'm gonna come back out. I'm gonna go straight over the forehead. I'm gonna come over and I'm gonna cut the forehead. So this is gonna come right across this top part of the forehead. If you've ever been cut in part of the forehead here by your eyebrows, it bleeds tremendously, right? So what happens is whenever we get cut here, all of that blood starts to trickle down to the eyes and makes it very hard to see and also hard to fight. So we're not playing by any rule sets here. So we're gonna cut across the top of the forehead. So let's go back through and go 1 through 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. One more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right? We're just kind of making an arc as we go around. So one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 to finish. All right, so let's go through that last two parts, and those are going to be to the femoral artery. All right, 1, 2 to the carotid, 3, 4 spleen and liver. Then we've got 5, and that's going to be a straight stick, right? And that can be, again, you start looking center mass, wherever that starts to go, just find that opening. And then as we start to come back, 6 to the forehead, 7, I'm going to come through just like a forehand in tennis. I'm coming up, and then I'm coming around for that backhand for 8, right? So 7 and 8. I'm coming into almost the bikini line of the carotid artery. So one of the things we have to remember is that the carotid artery is down here. It's low on the leg, but there's a lot of muscle and there's a lot of things to get through to be able to get through to that femoral artery. So if you're cutting low, it's going to be very deep to cut through. So it's going to be harder to get through that. The higher it comes on the groin, and it's literally up at the crease of the leg, you're going to start to see that femoral artery starts to come more to the surface. And then when I cut, it's going to actually cut that femoral artery. Now, let's think about whenever we're doing damage to the body. If we're looking at the carotid arteries, we have about 2 to 3 minutes, right? If we're cutting here, 2 to 3 minutes before they bleed out and then they die. If you start to cut to this femoral artery that's higher on the leg, you've got about 30 seconds. And then an aortic strike, you're instantly dead. So the level and the severity of where these cuts are going, every one of these moves could be deadly, but it just depends on how deadly it could be and as far as the time frame. So again, 2 to 3 minutes for the carotid up here, right? We've got about 30 seconds if we hit the femoral down toward the legs, and then we've also got the aortic strikes, right? That's if we hit the heart, then they're gonna be instantly dead. So let's think about that as we use these to try to set up our knife cutting angles, right? So we're using these as learning. These are what could be coming at us and what could be detrimental to our health if we ever are attacked. But if we know how to use the weapon, we'll be better equipped to be able to defend it, okay? So let's go through the 8 cutting angles together. So let's start from the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. One more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Well, Master Scott, what if they're left-handed? How does that work? Okay, so all we do is if you have somebody who's a southpaw in class, which basically means that they would fight with their left hand back and they're not right hand dominant, we would actually go into our left hand. We'd go into our left hand and we would start to do the same thing as a lefty, right? So we would start, the cutting angle wouldn't be this way, it would actually start across on the same side. So it'd go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And you may not encounter anybody who's left-handed in classes, but somebody may feel like they feel more left-hand dominant than right-hand dominant. So basically we're just switching sides. We're still starting the same 8 cutting angles. We're still starting them on the same side. So as we would start, my left leg would be in front, my left hand would be holding the weapon, and as I would start, I would still start to their left side, to my opponent or my threat's left side. So it would be 1, 2, and as I come down 3, right, I'm still going to the spleen, right? So instead of a forehand, it'd be a backhand movement. Then it would go to the liver, and then I'd come back for that stab, up, femoral, and femoral. One more time. So I'm starting across, right? So if you notice the difference between a left-handed and a right-handed fighter is I would start across with that left-handed movement, where my right-handed movement, it would be kind of the same side, all right? So you may not encounter any type of left-handed fighters inside of your knife class, but you may find one or two that prefer a left-hand dominant weapon. So, and that's okay, just be able to, categorize that and know your students and kind of be able to work it both ways. So if you have any questions, please leave a comment down below, but otherwise, 8 cutting angles, and excited to see you guys learn some really cool stuff with the knife.